Today we're having a chat with Sweeney, the CEO of Onto It, as part of the Leaders in Construction interview series. It's an opportunity to tap into the experience and the expertise of outstanding performers within the industry. Firstly, could we start with a brief bio?
Sweeney, my current role is Chief Executive Officer of Onto It, which is a project and advisory company. I've got about 30 years experience in the advisory side of the industry, mainly acting for clients or as a client, but I ran a Tier 1 construction company for 3.5 years, started up another construction company as well, and spent about 7 or 8 years working as a state government client. And on the back of that, I completed a PhD studying the economics around procurement decisions, where I argued a case of market failure.
Wow. I don't think there are too many in the industry who could claim that.
It's unusual to have all those components.
Yeah.
There's lots of people that have done two of those things, but very few have acted as a client, as an advisor, as a builder and an academic.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Okay, terrific. So if we look at that extended period from the time you started to the time to where we're at now, how would you describe what you think might be the changes or lack of change that have occurred in the industry over that period?
In broad brush, I think there's been enormous changes in the consulting industry, enormous changes driven by technology and outsourcing and a whole range of initiatives, globalisation and the like. At the same time, there's been very little visible change in the way that major buildings are put together.
And what impact has that had, do you believe, on the outcomes for which clients originally would embark on a project?
Well, I think the construction industry from the build side has basically flatlined in the last 30 to 40 years in terms of productivity, quality, efficiency.
That sounds like a sentiment echoed by Elon Musk. He seems to be of the same opinion, that there's been very little innovation in how we build things over a long period.
And I totally agree with him. I mean, if you look at the car industry and if you look at any factor by which you'd measure a car, if you looked at a car that we got 40 years ago, I owned a little Mini, it broke down every month. It wasn't that expensive, but it broke down. It leaked, it had virtually no amenity, it didn't have air conditioning, it didn't have a radio. It was a very basic car. If you look at a car today, it has an enormous amount of extra scope, CDs, ABS, road sensing devices. The engines now, they offer 6-year warranties. They don't rust, they basically don't wear out, and in real terms, a car today is probably costing a third of what it did 40 years ago. And if you contrast that to the construction industry, it gets relentlessly more expensive every year. And really, if you look at the quality of the built product, it's no better than it was, and possibly worse than it was 40 years ago. I mean, in many instances in Melbourne at the moment, the quality is worse.
So, in your opinion, what would have to change for that status quo to change?
This is probably a controversial topic, but I think there's a whole range of things. One is that clients have to be interested in pursuing that innovation, because my experience they're not. The clients in the industry are a fragmented group, and they are driven by narrow short-term interests of basically getting their next project up and out as fast as they can at the cheapest possible price. And they don't really have a longer term view than that. So that's a major issue, is clients would have to start taking a longer term view and probably working as a sector group to take the industry forward, because whichever way you look at it, clients set most of the agenda of what goes on in a construction project. I also do believe that the construction industry, the IR situation would have to be looked at very hard, because if you compared productivity and work methods in the industry, I mean, the construction unions are basically focused on their members and maintaining their members, and it's pretty hard to get radical productivity initiatives up because that would mean a reduction in their members, and I understand that. But if you look at the car industry and you look at the labour levels in the car industry where they were 30 years ago, you look at the level of robotics and computers and related technologies, there's been huge innovation, but it's come with a loss of jobs. And I think that rather sort of hard nettle needs to be grasped as to what happens. And because the current industrial dynamic drives high labour levels, you see technology which is suited to high labour levels, and you see builders with no interest in investing in other technologies as well. So we're sort of locked in this status quo.